I had the opportunity to just create my own department that didn't exist in this organization, right?
True.
And
Yeah.
so I started it from scratch, and it's been, I've learned a lot, but I have a lot of fun. Getting in front of a class and presenting and training is probably, one of my favorite things to do.
Hola, what's up, everybody? My name's Adrian Garcia. Welcome and welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast, brought to you by Jobber, my favorite CRM. If you guys need to get organized, better manage your business, Jobber is the perfect app for that. It's on your phone, it's on your tablet, it's on your computer, anywhere you have internet access, and you can invoice, quote, do your maintenance agreements, schedule jobs, get this customer hub where you can interact with your customers, send out reminders. It does so much for your business to help you free up your time at the end of the day. So if you guys want a free trial and discount, you can go to getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. Then we have VETO Pro Pack. I cannot tell you how many bags that I went through before finding out about this company with these high quality bags. If you guys want some good bags, some good tool bags, and really any bag you can think of, go to vetopropack.com. Ever since I've gotten their bags, they've lasted forever. All of our guys at our company have switched over to them. We've gotten them tool bags, backpacks, you name it, because Veto has it. So ever since I've switched over, my bags have lasted so much more. I love the variety and the different uses for these bags. I mean, you can get creative with it. So like I said, go check out vetopropack.com. Go look for a bag for yourself. Right now they're having a spring promo. It's basically buy one get one free, so take advantage of that. You won't regret it. We also have LOKAL HQ. Now this is a digital marketing for HVAC contractors. So if you guys are looking to build a online presence, they are geared towards HVAC contractors, and they can help you dominate your local service area with proven strategies that prioritize and maximize ROI. A lot of that stuff I don't know how to do myself, so I've been using them to get into that world and just build our business and get it out there a little more well known. Word of mouth is great, but having an online presence is essential if you guys want to grow. So go check out localhq.com. I appreciate all the sponsors of the podcast. You can find out all the links, information in the description, and find out more for yourself. Now, if you guys are listening to this on audio podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to it, please leave a 5-star review. I would really appreciate that. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment this video if you enjoyed it. And I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. I really love doing this. Great way to meet and talk to a lot of these guys, get their stories out. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making this what it is. All right, Tony, what's up, man? How is life?
Life is great, just living the dream one nightmare at a time. That's basically how I like to say it.
One nightmare. I love hearing everybody's unique little quote, because when I asked Ben about it, he's like, I'm unstoppable. And I was like, I've never heard that before. I love that. And then one nightmare at a time. I love that.
Well, because it's funny, because there's this social norm of when you meet somebody or when you see somebody, you just have to ask, how's it going? And you know what? Honestly, half the time you probably don't even care, or that person doesn't even really care to say, right? But it's just the social norm of, you know what? I'm doing good. All right. How's your family? Good. All right, cool. But just to be a little creative with it, put a little smile on someone's face.
Oh yeah, man. So I think everybody knows Tony from Fieldpiece. I feel like you're the face of Fieldpiece at this point. You're just about everywhere. I feel like you do a lot of them, a lot for them, and we'll get into all that. I like to kind of get to know, the guest here on the show instead of trying to do it off air. We're going to do it on air. But I feel like you do a lot for them, and I've seen you pop up on their YouTube, their videos, all that kind of stuff. So first of all, thanks for coming on the show, making the time, dropping in for this little podcast that I started doing, and I appreciate your time, man. Really quick for the listeners before we get into things, how long have you been, like yourself, have you been at Fieldpiece? And what's the, I guess, the position that you have right now?
So it's funny they asked me that because at Fieldpiece, we are hiring a bunch of people right now because there's so many solutions that we want to develop more for the industry that I was asked that question. Now someone asked me, like one of our new people here at Fieldpiece, they're like, "So what were you doing before you worked at Fieldpiece?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I was in high school."
Oh, really?
So so I've been at Fieldpiece since 1998.
Dang.
uh 20 plus something years. I graduated high school in that year. I was waiting for college to start. My aunt called me, who happened to work for this company named Fieldpiece at the time, saying, "Hey, this company that I work for has an opening in the warehouse. Do you want to make some money during the summer?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And at that time at Fieldpiece, we were like 8 employees. Fieldpiece started in 1990, family
Okay.
owned, still family owned to this day.
Oh, that's good.
And at the time, like more than half of those 8 people were of the family that owned it.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
so I just started working there in the warehouse. I was there for a couple of years, and then as I went to school studying like math and electronics and stuff like that, I went to the repair department where I would get the broken stuff coming back from the field. I'd kind of work on it, fix it, did that for a little bit, and then realize like, hey, nobody's keeping track why stuff is coming back from the field, right? Like nobody is looking at that. So I thought, hey, if we track that, maybe we can work with our manufacturers to prevent things from going like breaking in the field, right? So then that
Yeah.
turned into the beginning of our quality program, and this is like 2001, right? Maybe like 2002, and that began to grow really big. And I didn't want to do quality for my whole career, so I was like, hey, I want to go more into product development, engineering over at Fieldpiece. So we hired someone to take over quality who actually knew what they were doing because it got like pretty big. And then I
Okay.
became a Fieldpiece engineer and product developer for about 15 years, working on many of the products that guys love now, as far as like the S-man manifolds, the job link probes, the meters,
Yeah.
um, all that stuff. And then about 4 years ago, the company wanted to take a more proactive approach to training. We did not have a training department. And they asked me if I was willing to start it, because if we did have a training opportunity, I would be the one that would go out and teach a class here, at a conference there, while I was a engineer at Fieldpiece. So they asked if I wanted to start it. I said absolutely, because I enjoyed training. And I quickly realized shortly after that creating a training department is a lot different than teaching a class.
Oh, okay.
Those are two different skills, and I've
Gotcha.
had to learn a lot. And it's been 4 years, and it's been a great ride. So now my title is Director of Training at Fieldpiece. I created our training department, and I currently manage a team of 3 technical trainers that are in different parts of the country. One's in Georgia, one's in Chicago, and one's in California. And they split it up. And what we do at a very high level, we train contractors how to use best practices in the field to do their job easier, faster, and better. And then we
Oh, now
train
now I get the little
distributors
title there.
easier, faster, and better. That's kind of like my tagline I started saying like 10 or 15 years ago.
Gotcha.
Easier, faster, better. So we train technicians and contractors on best practices to do their job easier, faster, better. And we train distributors, wholesalers, features and benefits, and how to talk to the technician about our tools. So at a high level, that's what the Fieldpiece training department does. And we do it a bunch of different ways, but that's very high level. That's what I dedicate my time to, is training now.
Man, I was so curious because I like the questions that I usually have, it's like, what did you do before? Or, how did you get into this line of work or trades or in general? But you literally came out of high school, got into this, and then like just worked your way up. And that's
Yes.
awesome. Um, so like when you said when you started it was around 8 employees or people working there. What is it up to now? Do you have any idea?
Yeah. So if we just talk about our US group,
Yeah, for sure.
maybe mid 70s. I think we're close to 80 employees that we have now. And we have a lot of products, solutions in the popping that we want to develop. So we're currently recruiting for more engineers, for more product developers, for more technical people.
Yeah. And how difficult was it to go from essentially, because when you started there, you said you were working in the warehouse or something, right? And then quality control and stuff like that. How was the transition between all these different little jobs that you had, like getting a job there at Fieldpiece and then doing quality control, because you said you got into that after, and then you got into engineering and developing? Like, was there like a big learning curve, or like was that hard for you or anything like that?
Yeah, so early on, one of the things at Fieldpiece, the owner founder of Fieldpiece just made it. It was his philosophy of, he was looking for dedicated people that had good character and that were willing to be taught. So basically, every position that I got, I was not qualified to take on the position when I got it.
Gotcha.
And so the philosophy was, if you have the right attitude, the drive, the motivation, that we can teach the skills that you need. And that's how it was early on, you know, at Fieldpiece, with like a lot of us that have been with the company for 15, 20 years. Now at the size that we're at, we're not really at the point where we can take on projects. And so we hire really top talent that can just kind of hit the ground running and help us accomplish all the goals that we have. Most people know Fieldpiece and they think of maybe like the S-Man digital manifold, or they might think of probes or stuff like that. But Fieldpiece started in meters. That was our first project. The owner and founder of Fieldpiece worked in the meters industry before. And what he noticed was that back in the late 80s, there was nobody that was making meters specifically for the HVAC technician. Nobody. And so back at that time, HVAC technicians had to carry 2, sometimes 3 different meters just to measure things that are simple, like a capacitor or like temperature or different ohm ranges. And so he broke out and developed his own meter, started his own company that was specifically designed for the HVAC technician, that incorporated not only volts, ohms, amps, and all that, but threw in a way to test microfarads with your meter and have temperatures. And for those that are old school Fieldpiece, that they will remember the like stick meter and the different heads you can plug onto the top to measure like different things, like superheat or humidity or carbon monoxide.
Yeah, there was that one that was popular, with the different heads. I actually, because I went to school, they recommended, you know, the tools that we got, and we all had to get a Fieldpiece meter. That was like the standard. I went to school, it was like after 2010, somewhere around there. Or no, actually 2009-ish, right? So I was actually going to bring up, I was trying to dig through my photos because I don't have any of the stuff on me, but I got I think that's all I can zoom in.
I think that's an LT16 or an LT17.
LT16A. I remember that.
LT16A.
Yeah.
That's a true RMS bench meter.
Yes. That's the one that they told us to get for school. I had that thing forever. It didn't have the different heads, but it had the different attachment, like for the amps and stuff. You could still do all that. You just had to connect it to the leads. And my brother went to the same school, got the same meter. So we've had these for a while. And that's the meter that I started with. It did everything like you said, because like when I see meters out, you know, on the market, you have to pay attention to what they do, because not all of them do everything that you need as far as like microfarads. And you guys introduced like phase rotation, all that kind of stuff was really cool as an HVAC tech.
Yeah. And then even if you take it on the flip side, there's, you know, there are many technicians out there that buy, you know, these modern meters now and don't even really understand what half the features do on the dial, right? And so it's important to educate yourself on not only what your meter can do, but what's probably just as important is maybe what your meter can't do, so you don't find yourself in some weird situations.
Yeah, it's funny because I end up seeing meters that that can't do like half the things that I needed to do. And that's why I've always personally recommended Fieldpiece. I it's hard to find a Fieldpiece meter that doesn't do everything you needed to, because you guys do offer like a range of them, but they at the basic, even the basic one that you guys offer does most of everything. This was another one I found.
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, this was another one I
LT17.
found in my dad's warehouse. So like, you know, we all used Fieldpiece at this point. This was the LT, the LT17 microamps. You know, temperature is another thing. A lot of meters don't do temperature, and yours for the most part they do.
Yeah, pretty much all of our meters have a plug-in for a thermocouple. Sometimes two.
That was a big thing for me, because I do refrigeration. I got to check temperatures like all the time.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, one thing I found interesting that you said was, you know, it's difficult to find a Fieldpiece tool or product or meter that doesn't really do what you need it to do. Do you know why that is?
Well, I mean, you were talking about like he built it for HVAC techs, so I'm gonna go with that.
So yeah, so like the philosophy from Fieldpiece has never changed since day one, is that we focus on HVAC, and that's, or HVACR. A lot of people just say HVAC, but we don't want to leave out refrigeration. But for the sake of this argument,
don't leave it out in my logo. It's right there.
Do not leave it out. HVACR. And so any product that we do, it's just going to focus within this industry. And as my time as a product developer, we spent a lot of time in the field with contractors, technicians, becoming HVAC certified, going out to the field, helping out on installation service calls, and just understanding the application, but more importantly, understanding what the pain points are. What is it that's hard in the job of an HVAC technician? Because a tool is supposed to make our job easier. If it makes our job harder, then it isn't really worth much. And so when we develop a tool, in our mind, it is a solution to a problem. And at Fieldpiece, we're not going to make just some like Me Too product just because someone else has it. And so that means we're going to do it. If we don't figure out a way to make it somewhat easier, faster, or better, then we're just not going to invest our resources into it and you know, put something into that. So then you kind of mentioned to it earlier, you know, you talk about like a VCRT. It's a pretty simple tool, and that's probably why like we hadn't come out with one in a very long time, until we realized that there are some great opportunities to make the job so much easier for the technician in the field that it was just a natural transition. And we decided, boom, we are going to start developing a VCRT.
So I started seeing those pop up. I did go to AHR, did see you there. Your setup, you had those on display. Those are super interesting, and honestly, it's one of those things like, why didn't anybody think about it before? The whole sight glass. So I'm super stoked. Those do come out, I believe, sometime in March, end of March, sometime soon, right? So I can't wait to get my hands on one, because I'll let you explain that. But Fieldpiece in general, they're known for a lot of HVAC specialty equipment, you know, tools that are like, you know, powered tools. I don't know how to explain them, but like the vacuum pumps, the recovery machines, like a lot of the bigger equipment, and then your meters, your digital manifolds and stuff like that. But now you guys are developing a lot more, or trying to get more stuff out there that, like you said, solves problems for like what technicians need. The core valve removal tool is one of them. You guys have your hoses coming out too, or that came out recently. The little indicators are clutch. I really do like those, because I prefer black hoses, and you guys have done that too. So you guys are coming out with a lot of different things, and I guess now you can explain the core removal tool and why it's different, or what it solved for the HVAC techs out there, and why it's not just a copycat of others.
There's this philosophy that we have that's similar to Milwaukee. I'm sure you're familiar with Milwaukee, right? Obviously. But let me ask you this. When Milwaukee sells you a drill, in their mind, what do they think that they're selling you? What are you buying when you buy a drill from Milwaukee?
A lot of things: quality, reliability, you know, all that stuff.
You know what their thought process is? You're buying a hole.
Yeah.
That's what you're buying.
What it does.
You like look at the job and what is it that you need to do in the field? Well, there's many times you need to put a hole somewhere, right? Yep. And there's not just one way to put a hole into something. There's multiple ways you can put into a hole into something. And so they are providing a solution to putting a hole into something. So you could talk about, you can pull out any one of our products and I can give you a story on what is the problem that it's solving. But specifically with the VCRT, what does an HVAC technician buy when they're purchasing a valve core removal tool? Well, they're purchasing an open service valve, right? Like that's like basically you're purchasing the ability to take out a valve core while the system is pressurized. That's what its primary function is. Now, what we've learned that there are some pain points and there are some difficulties in performing that task of removing a valve core from a pressurized system. One of the pain points that we heard constantly and we observed and we live as we work on the systems that are here is everybody inevitably is playing the game of, did I get it? Yep. And you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about removing a valve core removal tool, right? You have these and you screw your female flare fitting onto the service port. You have your plunger, you stick it in, you grab it, you grab it on to the valve core, and then you're kind of unscrewing and screwing and screwing, hoping that you unscrewed it enough. You pull out your plunger, close your ball valve, and then you're taking off this, and this is where you say your prayers, and you're just hoping that valve core is here at the end when you got it. Now,
and I never get it on the first try.
Exactly. I was going to say, if someone says that they always get it on the first try, I'm going to introduce you to a liar, because none of us get it on the very first try every single time, and there's no shame there, right?
No, it's just you can't see, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought, wow, how could we make it to where we can tell that we have gotten the valve core without having to disconnect? Because keep in mind, every time you have to disconnect this, A, you are using time, and B, you are dealing with a little bit of refrigerant that's coming out every single time, right? So we're doing it multiple times, it wastes time. So we thought, well, what if you went to...
And your sanity, just honestly.
Yeah, exactly. So what if we integrated a sight glass into a valve core removal tool, right? And so this is the first innovation that we have with the Fieldpiece valve core removal tools, is we've integrated a sight glass that's on the system side of the ball valve. So now, as you use the plunger to pull out the valve stem, you can actually verify that you got it before you even have to pull it all the way out, close your ball valve, and then unscrew your plunger to confirm that you got your valve core. In addition to that, a lot of people have moved towards wireless probes, right? Job link probes to measure pressures and things like that. These don't necessarily have a sight glass. So unless you're putting your own sight glass somewhere in the setup, we've kind of lost the ability to visually see the refrigerant. So in addition to seeing the valve core, this sight glass serves the function as a sight glass in a manifold. You can see the condition of the refrigerant when you're recovering or charging. Is it liquid? Is it vapor? Is it contaminated? Is it a burnt out compressor? So now again, we still have visibility of what the refrigerant. Yeah.
No, I deal with a lot of dye too. The green stuff, just like everywhere.
Right. Absolutely. So the first innovation is integrating a sight glass into the valve core removal tool. Okay. Now, the primary function of a valve core removal tool is to remove the valve core. Now, I would say in the past 10 years or so plus, the industry has recognized a secondary benefit of removing the valve core from the service valve. What's that benefit?
We all got to put them on when we vacuum.
Yes, right? We all got to put them on when we vacuum, and that when we remove the valve core from the service port, we remove a big restriction to the flow, right? So the flow of refrigerant, of how fast we recover refrigerant from the system, how fast we pull a vacuum on the system, we found that if you remove the valve core, you can bring down your recovery and your evacuation times a pretty good amount. So a lot of technicians, what we do is we will have this onto the system when we recover. Actually, even before we get to that, wireless probe, right? One of the biggest questions when this came out is, well, how do I charge the system with refrigerant if I'm using one of these, right? And a real easy way, and the best way, is to have your valve core removal tool, screw it onto the system, and then you screw your pressure valve onto the side port of your valve core removal tool, right? So now you have the ability to measure the pressures in your system, and then you have your hose to screw onto here, and you can charge and you can recover with refrigerant, and that's great, and that's still built into the side port on the VCRT, which is short for valve core removal tool. You know what I realized is that there's a lot of people that don't use the acronym VCRT, because I get a lot of VCRT. What's that?
Yeah.
And then I'll be talking about valve core removal tool, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
I've never used the acronym myself. You guys kind of started saying that a lot, and I was like, okay, that's another way to say it. It's an easier way.
I mean, because number one, valve core removal tool is a mouthful. VCRT, it's a lot easier. So anyways, so then that's one functionality there. The second functionality is when you want to recover your refrigerant, right? You still have your valve core, you connect your hose here to your recovery machine, and then you have your whole setup, and now you can recover refrigerant through your valve core removal tool. You can even use a ball valve to throttle as needed during the recovery process. Now, you perform the repair, whatever you had to do, it's time to put refrigerant back in, but you got to pull a vacuum, okay? Now, the best spot to measure vacuum when you're evacuating a system is at the system, right? Sometimes we have a micron gauge connected in line in our line set. A lot of people ask me, but Tony, don't your S-Man manifolds have a micron sensor in there to measure microns? Yes, they do. And what I would say to that is that is an okay way to measure microns, but the best way is to have a dedicated micron gauge and connect it straight to the system, either on one of the service ports or on an entry point into the system. So what I will say about the digital manifold micron gauge, I still come across people that use their analog gauges to measure microns. And analog gauges are great and they serve their purpose, but if you're trying to read a needle to go to negative 30 inches of mercury, that's not accurate at all. So using the micron sensor in a digital manifold is way better than that. Yeah. Or even worse yet, I'll see people that, their process is, I'm going to start my vacuum pump, I'm going to go to lunch, I'm going to come back, and all right, my vacuum's done, right?
Yeah.
They just time it. So at least having the ability to measure microns in your manifold is better than those two other offerings. But if you want to have the most accurate micron readings, you're going to use a dedicated micron gauge and connect it directly at the system. And so that's what a VCRT allows you to do, is you have this connected on your service port, and you can connect your micron gauge to the side port of your valve core removal tool, and you can measure your microns there. Now, there is one issue with doing it this way, okay? And the issue is that when you're done with your evacuation and it's time to charge refrigerant back into the system, you don't want to expose your micron gauge to refrigerant or to high positive pressure.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I've heard people have issues with that. Sometimes you just have to let it, like you open the valves, and then most micron gauges can take that positive pressure, but you get oil in there, you get something else in there, and then you got to deal with that. You got to dry it out, clean it out. Something could happen,
For sure. So despite the fact that this micron gauge can take up to 800 psi of pressure. It's not something that I regularly want to expose it to for the reason that you just said about, over time, contaminating your sensor with oil or other stuff that is in the refrigerant. Okay. So you either have to do two things. You either have to charge it up and then expose this to the refrigerant, or you could say, well, you know what? Why don't I just disconnect it while the system's under vacuum, and then I don't expose my micron gauge to refrigerant. But what you just did by doing that is you momentarily allowed a little bit of air to go back into here, thus kind of nullifying the vacuum that you just pulled on the system.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a big no-no. Right now, I don't even have a valve on mine, to be honest. I just sacrificed my micron gauge, but go ahead. I know you guys got a solution.
Yeah. So we developed on the high end of the Fieldpiece valve core removal tool a second ball valve integrated into this side port right here.
Yeah, I cannot wait till those are out.
Yes. So now when you screw on your micron gauge onto the side port of your system, you can pull your vacuum, and then when you're done pulling your vacuum, you can just blank this off. And now this is completely isolated, and you charge the system back up with refrigerant. You don't let air back into your setup, and you don't expose your micron gauge to positive pressure. It seems like it's a very simple idea, but this is the first valve core removal tool that actually has it.
It's like, and I told you, it's like, why did nobody ever do this? Like, the side glass was a big one for me, because how many times, and everybody makes a joke about it, like, did you get the valve core? Did you get that Schrader out, right? And there are little tips and tricks, pinch off, make the little, the puller tighter, do this, do that. I've had to literally pop them out by opening the valve to get the pressure to pop it out. Because sometimes I have issues. I don't know where it's stuck at. There's tons and tons of stuff where if you just had a sight glass, you could see what the hell was going on. It's just, and then the valve that you said on the other side of the micron gauge, that's another thing. Like I just said, and you could put a external valve on there, right? There are ball valves that you can do, but in anything that I do, I hate adding extra leak points. Adding an extra connection. Even when I do my copper, I hate couplings. I hate having extra points where you can get a leak. So I've just always sacrificed my micron gauge just because I'm like, well, it can take a little bit of pressure. Just like you said, over time, you might have issues with it later down the line. And I know people who probably use it on the daily, and they're having issues where their sensors acting up and stuff like that. So again, really cool innovation. And that's the stuff that, like you guys there at Fieldpiece designing, getting into all this stuff. You said you guys are looking more into that kind of stuff now, or gearing up or ramping up a little bit more, because it's relatively, well, it's awesome for us as techs. If you guys see a problem that techs have, you guys want to solve it, and that's a great product.
Right. And so to that point of adding that extra connection. So we have a system evacuation class, right? Where myself or my trainers, we teach on how to pull a vacuum, what are the best practices.
What is you guys' procedure there?
So specifically what we're talking about here with the VCRT is, on your traditional one, we would teach using either a ball valve like you said here, or maybe even a second valve core removal tool in general, and screw it on there. But the problem is two. One, you've already called out, is that you're introducing another potential leak point. But the second problem is, look how much bigger this makes your tool. And sometimes space is a premium when we're at those service valves, right? There's not a lot of space to like hook up all these things. So just having it directly integrated into the side port keeps it in a relatively small package so that you don't have to bump, and it doesn't introduce that second leak point. Also, let me grab something real quick, because I'm going to ask you if you've ever seen this before.
All right.
Have you seen the ability? So we have these grabbers, right? We have the plungers. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Right. That's what grabs it. Let me get a valve core here.
Does yours have any magnetic feature to it.
So I'm gonna grab this on there. How many can you just hold on to the valve and the plunger doesn't let it go?
No, I haven't seen that.
That doesn't happen. Shake it around, do this. Okay, so we also made this better because to your point, you called out, sometimes it gets dropped in here, right? And then there's nothing else to do other than shoot it out with the
I've done it
pressure
plenty
of
of
the system.
times. Yeah.
Right. So we've actually integrated a much better solution to where the grabber isn't just using friction by like getting some pliers and like closing like the grabber things closer. There's actually like a hole in the middle here that grabs onto the top of the valve core and it holds it in there. So when you get it in there, you kind of feel like a clip or a grab, and then once it's in there, it is in there and it's not going to fall out. So they have the magnet on the back, so you can put it on the system or whatever, and it's not going to fall or get loose.
Yeah, that was my other question, because I had just bought some because of the magnetic feature, which I wish I would have known you guys were coming out with one, because I went out and grabbed. I have a whole bunch of different other ones, but that's a cool feature too, to have the magnetic part where you can just kind of throw it on a system, because I work outdoors a lot. Those things roll off the top of the unit and fly off.
There you go.
Just you got everything covered.
Just stick it right there. It's not going to fall off. But yeah, so we put a lot of thought. I guess just to wrap up that conversation, there are 3 models, right? There's the entry-level model that does not have the sight glass or the second valve, but it does have like the premium grabber. They all have the good grabber, but then they also have the ability to swap this fitting to work on a 5/16 inch service port. So that these tools are compatible.
There was only one other company, I think, doing that, like, but you need an adapter or something.
Yeah, so that other way to do that was to have your 1/4 inch fitting, and then you screw on the 5/16 inch fitting on the top of that, which just kind of makes your tool longer. And again, we're talking about space as a premium sometimes when we're working on these service ports. So the Fieldpiece VCRT has the ability to just like unscrew the 1/4 inch fitting, take your 5/16 inch fitting, and use it for the same tool. So you don't need 2 tools for both those fitting types. You just need the VCRT and then the 5/16 inch fitting adapter to just swap back and forth.
You swap it out, exactly. So is that just hand tight and you're good?
No. So I'm just doing this just for a demo.
Okay.
I would recommend hand tight and then maybe do like a 1/4 turn with
you can wrench it. Okay, I gotcha.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because it's, the fittings, I don't know how we can see that, but the fitting is wrenched here.
Oh, there you go.
Or
okay, I couldn't see that part.
It's a nut basically, right?
Yeah.
And so you can just have like an adjustable wrench and give it a 1/4 turn. It's got a gasket on it. And the VCRT is vacuum rated down to 20 microns. So that's not really something that you need to be concerned about with that. So entry-level model VC1. This is the most compact version of the VCRT. So if you're on a system that's really, really tight on space, this might be your best option. Step up to the VC1G. Has everything from the VC1.
Yeah, you got to get the sight glass. That's all I'm going to say.
And it has the sight glass. It doesn't have the second ball valve, but it's got the sight glass in there, right? And then you go to the VC2G that's got it all. The sight glass, the second ball valve, the swappable fitting, and all that stuff. So there's 3 options. What I envision is guys typically going with the VC2G, the one with the sight glass, and
perfect for vacuums.
But also having the compact option in case space is a premium, and this doesn't fit.
I think getting one of each is the only way to go, honestly.
That is the best way, actually, now that I think about it.
I'm gonna have the compact one as a backup, or maybe the secondary vacuum side. The 2 ball valves for the micron, and then I'm gonna have just the one that just has the 1 valve with the sight glass as the main one that when I got a leaking Schrader valve, that's the one that I'm gonna use. So like I said, one of each, I'm good.
There you go.
I'm trying
I
to
like
help you.
that.
I'm trying to help you out, man. Everybody has to buy one of each. Just we'll go that way.
Exactly. Probably two of each to have a backup for each one. I think that's
Oh,
the best
you
way to do it.
forgot about the backup. So you guys, well, cool product. I saw it at HR. Well, was very interested in it. Like I said, I've seen it pop up here and there. And again, just why have we not had that? You know, that's I feel like that's a necessity at this point. So looking forward to that coming out. Like I said, I'll probably just pick up one of each and just throw out the other ones I have or have them as backups or something. But
Third
cool
backup.
stuff. Cool stuff, man. So you guys what okay, so you do a lot of training now, right? So you gave us a really good training there or quick points on some of the procedures that you guys go over, but are you still involved in the design? Because that's what you did before, right? The designing and the coming up with new products. Are you still involved with that too?
Yeah, so the short answer is absolutely yes, because our product developers need that bridge from the lab to the field. And so,
So you said you guys go
that's what
out
I
to the
provide.
go out with contractors, right? You guys actually go out in the field?
Yeah, for sure. So our product developers, a really important part of things of what they do is that they need to get out into the field. They have their KPIs and number of times that they're supposed to go out on ride-alongs, hang out with a technician contractor. So if you are a technician or contractor out there in any part of the country that would be willing to have a Fieldpiece product developer or a Fieldpiece product manager right along with you, reach out to us at Fieldpiece and we will definitely reach out to you. We are always looking for more people to be able to get out into the field.
I think everybody's gonna want somebody from Philippines with them, or they're gonna want you to go out with them too.
I mean, yeah, I hope so. The more the merrier. But yes, so I and my team are still involved in the product development of understanding what the application is, or helping our product developers and our product managers understand applications, pain points, because like they might have an idea that it might be a great idea, or it might not be, and we're the ones to like help them understand the why. Why is that a good idea? Why is that not a good idea? And so yeah, we're still heavily involved in the product
So
development of
like,
our tools.
are these in development for a long time? Like, how long do you guys hold on to these before you release them?
So the standard development cycle of a product that's a new product and not just an improvement on a previous product, generally that cycle is 18 to 24 months of going through feasibility, understanding the application, doing all your homework on paper, and then going through the product of designing, testing, manufacturing, creating a launch plan, marketing, training. Generally, for a new product, it's about 18 to 24 months. If it's an existing product that it's being upgraded, maybe 6 to 12, maybe 15 months from there. That's the general product development cycle, I guess.
So, what can we expect? Is there anything in the works right now? Like, are you guys constantly developing things?
So that is a great question. That unfortunately I'd have to kill you if I told you what was
That's
what
what
was coming out
I have in my
next.
notes here. Like, oh, it's gonna probably be top secret, but like, I just had to ask.
No, for sure. Oh, what I can say is that we are always looking for opportunities to solve problems in the field. And for those that are following along, recently we got into the product of a combustion analyzer. That was a tool that we had not had previously and was a big hole in our heating products line of tools. And there are other gaps and areas in which we do not have a solution as of yet. So I guess if as an HVAC technician or contractor, just think about, all right, what is it that Fieldpiece is not doing currently? And there's a good bet that we are kicking the tires on any idea that you could think of in that.
I think I mentioned to you this before, and I've had chats with other technicians. Just throwing it out there. If you guys put a little digital screen on the probes, pressure probes, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. We've gotten that many times. So let me just ask this question. Is that worth it to you if it increased the price 20 or 25%?
It might be, because a lot of people don't like pulling out the phone. I'm partial to, because I'm in Texas. My phone overheats so easy if I have it out, right? And I tried the laptop route. I broke my thankfully I bought a cheap one, but I broke it within a week. So I can't do the laptop or the tablet route. My phone overheats because I'm trying to use it sometimes, and it won't, because I have to leave it out there, and I could be doing like ice machines or something that I need to be constantly looking at the pressure. So like, just, I don't know. It's just a thought, because if not, then I have to go to analogs and make little stubbies out of them, and then I do it that way. So
I would say that there's a chance that the next generation of wireless probes do have some type of display on there.
Yes.
Or again, think about what the problem is. The problem is you don't want to have to use your phone because it overheats to view the measurements from the probes. Putting a display on the probe is one way of solving that problem.
Yeah.
But there's also other ways of solving that problem. So that's what we think about.
Yeah, no problem. And then also, like, if your phone dies or something like that, and you got to go back to the truck and plug it in and charge it, stuff like that. Just
absolutely.
Obviously, you guys have been thinking about it. You got stuff rolling over there. So excited to see what you guys come out with and that's what I figure. Like, wait till the first generation of probes that you guys did knocked it out the park, right? Because I tried others, ended up going to Fieldpiece, and then just paying, for the whole kit that you guys have, and nothing else works like it. Like how slim they are, the quality build, they've lasted forever on the batteries that are in there. Like, I love everything about it. So I can't wait till the next generation and then all the other stuff that you guys have coming out. Will you guys ever go like backwards, like analogs, or are you all digital? Just asking, but that might be one of those things. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just gonna let my smile answer that.
I was gonna say that might be one of those things where it's like, well, we're not gonna put a product out there that everybody else has, right? Like, you guys had the S-Mans, which I was gonna show. These were my first digital gauges, the original S-Man 3s or something like that. And this picture was from a couple of years ago. I fixed them up. I abused the hell out of these. I had to get the screen replaced. That's why I said, disregard the green clamps. I kept the original ones to put on my new one because I bought a new one. But I gave this one to my brother, and I had the screen replaced. I had it sent out for repairs. The battery panel messed up on me. Like, I abused the hell out of it because I was a young tech. I was pretty excited to get digital gauges, but I did not take care of them. So like, finally got it fixed up. My supply house sent it out to Fieldpiece for repair. We paid for the repair, and then it still works. It still works fine. I did break the hook. That is a clothes hanger on there. So had to get a little creative. I don't know if you guys still sell parts for this or not, but it still works. It's still there. My brother has it. Made it work.
Yeah, so for that, we probably don't have parts for that generation of manifold. But what I can say is we learned a lot from that first generation of the digital manifold, and the hook being one of the many lessons, that we got as far as, this has to be more beefed up and sturdy because these things hang in a truck. And while the truck drives, it vibrates and it shakes. It's not just hanging on the side of a condenser.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Exactly. Right. And so there's a lot of stuff we learn along the way to where we've probably updated the S-Mans. I think we're on the 4th generation of the S-Man digital manifolds. And they're as sturdy as they've ever been, and
And
rugged and
they're
weather
smaller.
resistance.
They're more compact now too.
Mm-hmm.
So I love them. It's just they never quit. I was like, well, I got a new pair. What do I do with these? And I fixed them up and gave them to my brother. So I mean, they're still working. He still has them.
Absolutely.
All right, man. So okay, we talked a lot about the products, but you got into training now. Is that what you really enjoy doing? Is the training part of what you've done at Fieldpiece now?
Yeah, I would say that I am getting the most enjoyment out of my current position now at Fieldpiece. It's funny because sometimes people ask, "Man, you've been with a company for like 20 plus years. Like, does it get boring?" And really, I've done like so many different things within the company that it just doesn't seem like it's been one job for like 20
Okay, yeah.
years. I've done different things, different departments, and now I had the opportunity to just create my own department that didn't exist in this organization, right?
True.
And
Yeah.
so I started it from scratch, and it's been I've learned a lot, but I have a lot of fun. Getting in front of a class and presenting and training is probably one of my favorite things to do. And so yeah, this is the most enjoyable time that I've had at Fieldpiece. And I think what I like most is how our trainings are different than most other manufacturers is, you know, our trainings are based on application. So one example is, right, we don't have a training class on our vacuum pumps. We have a training class on system evacuation, right?
Oh, okay.
Um, why do you do it? What do you need? What's necessary? What are best practices? How do you do it easier, faster, and better? So anybody that comes to one of our classes, whether they use a Fieldpiece product or not, they're going to go out with really good knowledge that they can apply in the field. So our trainings aren't sales pitches. Our trainings are not product demos.
Yeah,
We teach best practices.
I love that. So it's just, how do you do this? Obviously, you're using Fieldpiece products, but it's just like the concept and the procedure. So that's a good spin on it. I like that.
Yeah, and so we do that for refrigerant recovery or leak detection or combustion analysis or system diagnosis, measuring airflow, refrigerant charge, electrical, things like that. Um, those are the classes that we give. Probably the most popular class now that's requested by contractors and wholesalers is what's going on with these A2L refrigerants and this transition to A2L refrigerants. So the
Yeah,
majority of our classes now are training contractors on why is this even happening? What does A2L even mean? And how does this affect your job in the field? And
so
so
you
that's
guys you guys get
probably one of our
into
biggest classes.
yeah, so you guys get into the refrigerants and the A2Ls themselves, right? To, I guess, educate the techs, not just use our products because they are A2L compatible, right?
Absolutely. We get into the environmental factors that are leading to this transition. What are the government
Okay.
regulations like the AIM Act that is bringing this transition? How are these refrigerants different, and how are they the same as our current refrigerants? Is explosion a a reasonable concern? Spoiler alert: no, it's not. Uh, there's there's a lot of fear mongering going around the industry that these new A2L refrigerants, they got propane, they got butane in
Yeah.
there, and all that. All that's false, and it it really helps the contractor have a sense of security of, okay, now I understand a little bit more what's going on. I don't have to fear it. And for those that were in the field when we had to transition from R22 to 410A, this transition from 410A to the R454B or things like that is a lot easier than that older transition. Why? Because the pressures aren't different. We're still dealing with the same pressures. We're still dealing with the same temperatures. We're still dealing with the same POE oil. That was not the case when we went from 22 to 410A. Pressures went way up. Oil was different, all that stuff. And so the only thing that we need to be concerned about or just be cognizant of is that because these are classified by ASHRAE as slightly more flammable than our current, just slightly, barely, a smidge, that there are certain devices that these newer systems are going to come with, like mitigation devices, that if there is a leak in the indoor coil, there's this sensor in the indoor coil that's going to measure the presence of refrigerant. And that if that refrigerant reaches a certain threshold, mitigation devices will happen. For example, the blower will automatically turn on to circulate that refrigerant, so that it's not just being trapped in the evaporator coil. And so it's just small stuff like that a technician, an installer needs to know about how to install that, how to connect it to the board. And a service technician needs to know to be able to ensure that that sensor is still working. But that's just one example of things that we need to be aware of. And our training classes train the technicians on that.
Oh, that's awesome, because yeah, I've heard that too. You know, people getting afraid and scared of all this change coming. But like you said, we've been through it before. Worse back then, you know, coming from all those older refrigerants to what we use now, which is for me like 410A, 404A, because I do refrigeration too, and 134A. Like I've had so many that I've had to deal with that I'm already tired of them. But you know, we're changing again, so we gotta gear up for it. There are propane-based refrigerants. That's not what this is. Like you said, this is just A2Ls are just slightly more flammable. That's the only way you can describe it. And if you're doing your best practices, you have good equipment, you're fine for the phase out.
Yes. So yeah, the big takeaway from these training classes is I want the technician or the contractor to walk away with two things. If they forget everything else, two things to remember. Number one, if you're a technician or contractor that is already following best practices in the field in regards to installation, to service, to evacuation, to recovery, there's very little that you're going to have to change dealing with these new A2L refrigerants. So that's one takeaway that I want them to have. The second takeaway is when it comes to your tools, you have to make sure that the manufacturer of your tool declares that that tool is A2L compatible. And that's mainly for your own liability in the field, right? New HVAC standards and regulations dictate that technicians that work on systems with A2L refrigerant have to use tools that are A2L compatible. As a technician or contractor, the only thing you have to be sure of, if I buy this micron gauge, Fieldpiece says that it's A2L compatible. And so we have a website, we have a page on our website that shows all of our A2L compatibility, and basically anything of our current generation of our tools we declare as A2L compatible.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's basically everything, because I've always paid attention to that, and you guys, like everything you guys offer basically is compatible.
Right.
Let me ask you a quick question before we get out of here. Well, maybe a few. Do you speak Spanish?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you guys ever gone in or talked about Spanish content? I don't know if you guys do.
So actually recording Spanish content, we do not. I have given Spanish language classes in Mexico, in Latin America, even in Europe, Spain, you know, things like that, where I have given Spanish classes. One of the things that we're thinking of is because we're in Southern California, and so you could appreciate that there's a lot of Spanish spoken in this area. You're in Texas. I'm assuming that you see a lot of Spanish.
I'm right by the Mexico border, bro.
Okay, then yes. So then you see a lot of Spanish. So one thing I want to start doing is offering Spanish-based classes here, like at our Fieldpiece building, because I know there's a huge demand for that. And down the road, we do have a roadmap of coming out with Spanish language training content videos that we put on our Fieldpiece University for
that'd be awesome, because I've kind of worked with Fieldpiece in the past, where I do some of their. I have some YouTube videos for Fieldpiece.
Mm-hmm.
I've been asked a few times, and then just in general recently, people want more Spanish content. So like there was a couple of comments that I got like on the meter video that I did and stuff like that, where they're like, I mean, it's in Spanish, but they're like, nice, can we have the Spanish version and this and that. So like I've seen a need for Spanish content. I've tried to dabble in it myself a little bit here and there, but there are creators that are going to it, YouTubers, Instagrammers, stuff like that. So I was just curious if you guys had it on your radar, because I think that would, especially like you said, being in California, like that would be a big audience that you guys get into and are able to educate more techs that way.
Absolutely. There's a large audience for that, and there's definitely a need that needs to be filled. So that is on our radar for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. I love to hear that. Man, so you travel a lot, don't you? I know you do the trade shows and stuff. So like at your current position, or maybe for a while now, have you traveled quite a bit?
Yeah, so there is quite a bit of travel. I would say that the trainers on my team travel even more than I do, because they're working with the day-to-day trainings with wholesalers and contractors. When it was just me, I would do that. But now that I built out my team, when I travel, it's mainly for what you kind of called out, right? Trade shows, conferences, symposiums, or if OEMs have big conferences for their dealers, I go out to there and do trainings. Like just earlier this week, I was in Nashville at the Lennox Live event for Lennox dealers, and I did a presentation with Don Gillis from Chemours, and we taught all about A2L refrigerants and next week we do it in Florida, Don and I, for the Lennox Live in Orlando. And yeah, so from January to April, it's kind of busy for me as far as traveling.
Yeah, I was gonna say it gets pretty hectic, doesn't it? Because I see that you're going out there, like I said, trade shows and other things. I just started traveling a couple of years ago. I was in my own little bubble here in my small town, and then I finally went out. I started doing the AHR expos and Vegas, Atlanta, Chicago. The next one I know is in Orlando. The one that I have on my bucket list is the HVAC school symposium. It looks awesome. I've done the virtual thing to see it, but I've never been in person, so that's on my to-do list there to get out there one of these years.
Yeah, so you definitely have to make it out there. I think of all of the whatever you want to call them, trade shows, symposium, conferences that I go to, that one is unique. One of the reasons it's unique is right now it's capped out at 200 people in person.
Oh yeah.
So when you go to AHR, like you have been, there's so many people there. Yeah. There's so much to do that it's hard to have connections with a single person. Whereas at Symposium, we are in this space together for 3 days, and there's a lot of time to get to know people on a more individual level, have much better networking opportunities, get to know people. It's more laid back than your traditional, but everyone's focused on education. Everyone's focused on best practices. And it's really good. So yeah, hopefully you can make your way out there.
It's on my list, man. One of these coming up I'm going to go to, but also the Fieldpiece University, you mentioned that earlier. I just want to quickly ask, is that part of the training stuff that you guys do, or is that something separate?
No, for sure. So we deliver our trainings either in person, live virtual, or live virtual, like on a Zoom or a Teams call.
Okay.
And our third option is our Fieldpiece University. So Fieldpiece University is our online learning website resource that's free to the technician and the contractor to go to and find a bunch of different training courses on how to use Fieldpiece tools in the field on actual systems in the field. And so we have different training tracks. That one of my jobs now that I'm step away from the day-to-day training is to create more of what we call these training tracks. So for example, we just released one on the combustion analyzer. It's a series of 7 courses that you finish in a specific order. But once you do, you pretty much know everything about the Fieldpiece combustion analyzer, and you know the best practices on how to perform a combustion analysis in the field. And so my job now is to create more of that video content for like the manifolds, for the recovery machines, for the vacuum pumps, but it's focused on the application, and it's just using our tool so that when you complete that, you can be like a vacuum pump Fieldpiece master or certified and something, right? And then maybe you have stickers for your van or patches for your thing. Like, you know what? I'm an S-man expert, or I'm a leak detector expert from Fieldpiece, or just whatever. So there's a healthy compilation of training courses there now that are great for the technicians to learn best practices, how to do their jobs easier, faster, and better. But there's way more content on the horizon that's going to be put into Fieldpiece University.
Well, awesome, because I wasn't sure completely what it was about, but that's really good to know. Awesome stuff at Fieldpiece going on. Do you have any hobbies? What do you do when you get out of work, man?
So I'm big into sports. I like playing sports. I like watching sports. So I watch pretty much a lot of sports. So football is one of them, both professional and college football.
So what are your teams? Like, who do you go for and all that?
Okay, so that is an interesting question, because for football, I can say that I don't have a team. I'm a fan of all 32. I'm a fan of NFL. And the quick reason why, I grew up in Los Angeles, born and raised. I still live here. I believe in only rooting for my local LA teams. As a kid, we had the Rams back in the 80s, early 90s. They moved away. We didn't have a team anymore. So I kind of stopped rooting for a specific team and just enjoy football for the sake of football, like on Sundays. The Rams are back now, but I just can't get that connection with them again. Maybe I will later on, but right now it's just not the same. So for football, I don't really have a team.
Any do you watch
What about
basketball?
you?
I'm a basketball guy.
Oh, you're a basketball guy. All right.
Yeah, as far as like football, everybody here is Cowboys. So
yeah,
I don't get into
what
that
about
too much.
Texans?
There's not a lot. I have a couple of buddies that are Texan fans, but there's not much. Everybody's here is Cowboys. So I'm more into basketball. I've been into basketball since I was little. I used to be a Bulls fan. Obviously, I think that's everybody's default for Jordan. But then I'm actually a Laker fan. So that's what I've been for the past, like, I don't know, 20 years, 10 years.
How did that happen? I'm curious from out there in Texas.
Okay, so, well,
okay, like wait, hold on. When did you start watching basketball? Like, what was the years you feel like you kind of transitioned to Lakers? Talking about like late 90s, early 2000s?
Early 90s is when I started watching. That would have been
early 90s.
That would have been like, the Jordan era. And then once he retired, I was like, who the hell do I root for? And like you said, like I'm a fan of everybody. Like I love basketball like so much. I watch a lot of NBA. And then my dad was a diehard Laker fan. So he liked Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Kareem, all those guys. So then I don't know, that whole Kobe and Shaq duo, I mean, I loved it. We watched it together, and that's what I grew up watching.
No, for sure. I've definitely been watching the Lakers since the 80s. I'm still a Laker fan to this day. It's not looking too good this season, but we'll see. We'll see.
It's been rough the past few years, not gonna lie, but it is what it is.
But you know what? You stick with your team. That's just what it is.
Like since I've been a Laker fan, like I said, because of my dad, diehard Laker fan. That's the only team that I've gone for. So I've been through it all, man, because it's been up and down like for the past 20 years. So you get used to it. Anyway, what was I gonna get to? Oh yeah, so I don't know if you see my logo. Hopefully you guys don't come after me for infringement there, but I was like, I need the best tools in my logo. That's one of my that's not the main one that I use, but that's the one that I use. And or every now and then. And I was like, I I need the best tools. Those are the best tools. So don't come after me, okay?
Yep. Don't come after me and don't at me.
There you go. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you for coming on the show, man. It was great talking to you. We're at the hour. I don't want to keep you too long. You're still at work, aren't you?
So remember I mentioned I came from a Fieldpiece party and I just
That's
came
right.
back into the office and no one is here. I'm like, it's a ghost town other than me.
Well, get home, man. You got to get out of there. So I appreciate you for making time. Loved conversating with you here, man. And, thanks again.
Likewise, Adrian, it was a pleasure. And I hope we can keep on talking and communicating in the future.
Hey, man, I always love talking to you. You've been a supporter even when I started these live podcast shows. I saw you popping in, talking to you, here and there, and I appreciate the support, man.
Absolutely. No problem.
So everybody watching and listening, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and coming out, and I will see you guys next time.